It's literally almost done.
Really? We haven't started yet.
No, we haven't even started yet. But we are rolling so we can get started so that you can get out of here.
Oh, God.
So we can get you back home to
Children.
your children. Today's guest hasn't been here since January and has somehow still stayed on the roster. But you are one of the long-time members of the team and somebody who I've had the pleasure of watching grow. Mm-hmm. And now you're married, you have 2 children, and you are still juggling family life and this job. And today's Taylor is on the show. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay. You're going to survive.
Welcome back, Taylor. Thank you.
Welcome back just for the podcast, just so we could grill you with some questions.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to start this one a little bit different just to throw you a curveball because you've probably been studying up. What you haven't. What is it like to try and be at home, children, and still try and find time to work with clients, which you had your first, then you came back, you had your second, and that's got to be a lot, even more time consuming.
It is, yeah. So the first time I actually started working from home just before I had her because it was right before COVID had started. And so I was very pregnant and I think people in the office had got it or something. So you told me just stay home to be safe. And that was November 2020. And then she's 2.5 now. So I came back for a brief period and then got pregnant again. And now I have a 5-month-old. So now I'm trying to do some stuff from home, but it is a lot more difficult because with 2 of them, nothing ever lines up really, like naps and stuff like that. So it's a little bit harder to make sure that I'm always available because, you know, sometimes you got to call people back instead of always answering right away kind of thing.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's good to do something that isn't just being at home with the kids. So it's nice to kind of get back into it.
It's hard because we say this a lot, we're dealing with time sensitive and you're in the renewal department now. So things have a ticking clock and you have to do something at a certain time. And I always think with you and Becca and Danielle, who are, I'm not gonna say fortunate enough but it works for your lifestyle right now to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. I think that's what's attractive about the mortgage industry as a whole or real estate. This one's a bit different because we're all in the office except for
us. The
few, right?
Yeah.
And we just looked in the renewal department and we're giving you more in the process of giving you more traffic. And I think to myself a lot, they're like, how many? Let's give her 20. And I'm like, I have kids.
Right. It's busy.
That's pretty hard to be accountable to the client I say this to the guys and girls on the team all the time. Clients unfortunately don't care.
No.
Right.
What's going on in your life because you are their agent and you're supposed to be.
You need to be available when they need you.
Yeah. So I'd still often wonder how you're going to manage 5 or 10 or 15 deals when you've got multiple things to do for 2 little people who
really need her.
Need you.
They do need me. And I don't have childcare right now because he's too little to send him anywhere. So I have help with my husband, obviously, and my mom. But, you know, other than that, it's still, I have to be there when I have to be there. So I haven't got into it fully yet. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how that goes. But from the stuff that I have been doing so far, again, there's been times where, you know, instead of picking up a call with a screaming kid, I settle them and then get the time to go call them back. And people so far have been very understanding. It's not like it's a long period of time. And so I'm just making sure that I'm getting to it as fast as I can. But it's not what you're used to when, you know, you kind of have to be immediately available all the time. So
yeah. And you kind of hope that you have the list of clients that have also worked from home and do have children and are kind of going through that own struggle on their end.
Right.
Where they're kind of like, okay, I appreciate you even calling me back 15 minutes. Like, I understand like life happens.
Right.
And I think COVID's prepared people for that slightly slower turnaround, especially when people are working from home, because there are distractions at home naturally. Whereas when you're in the office and you're only doing mortgages 9 to 5, typically the turnaround's a lot faster. So I think with that, it's allowed people to be a little bit more empathetic, be a little bit more understanding. And then you have the other clients that actually do expect you to call them right back and so on and so forth. And that's just
It's a bit interesting though, because the work from home culture and acceptance is slowly starting to turn
back
the other way. We had one of the major banks in here was like, they're putting now they're having a like demand you must be X amount of days in the office into policy in the new year. People are upset about that. And my question would be like, you know, it's gonna last forever.
Right.
No.
Right.
Yeah,
and now
for sure.
There'll be some resistance on, or people who are used to working from home. We're not changing that policy. It doesn't make sense. And unless I
case
purchase
by case,
a daycare somewhere over here, it's never going to happen. So I totally get it. And the advantage is I have a lot. So I know what it's like and not like, because I'm not the main driver at home. So I have a couple of favorite Taylor moments.
Oh God.
I know, right? You should be concerned.
I am.
My first one is how you got here. Mm-hmm. I'll let you tell the story. Do you remember how you got here?
For the most part.
It was a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
You were referred here, and back then, even still to this day, a referral is pretty valuable to me, because someone else has met you or knows you and says, you know what, I talked to Taylor and I think she'd be a good fit. Are we looking for anybody at that particular time? Whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But we had an interview.
Oh yes. How did I know this was going to be talked about?
Because it was my favorite Taylor moment of all time. And I said to Taylor, I gave her my usual attitude when I used to do it in person. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm only looking for superstars. Are you a superstar? What would you say?
No.
She looks at me, she goes, oh no, that's not me. And so I was shocked, because in the interview she was doing so well. And I'm like, this girl's going to be like, yeah, I'm a superstar. I'm getting the vibe she may reach across the table and punch me in the face during this interview. So I was a little bit even apprehensive asking the question. And she looked and she go, no, that's not me. You got the wrong guy, buddy. I'm not a superstar. And I'm like, you're not? I was so disappointed. I was like, you're not?
Yeah.
And you're going, oh, wait. I am.
And we had Dee on a previous podcast who emailed something along the lines of, I am a superstar. And I sent it off to Adam. I was like, this guy's weird. Like, who answers that? And he's like, that is the best answer ever.
So to be fair, I was working. I'd finished school. I knew that wasn't the route that I wanted to go. I was working as a waitress, serving temporarily while I figured out what I wanted to do. I was working with the wife, or now wife, I guess, of somebody who worked here. And so that was how I got referred. And truthfully, I really had no idea what
to expect.
Yeah, that's true.
What the industry was. Like, it wasn't like I set out to do it. It was a random, like, oh, we're hiring. I think you should come in for an interview. And then this person went on to tell me what you would do in the interview, and it made me very nervous. And so I can remember pulling up to the building, and it was summer, because I remember I was like sweating between it being hot and so nervous. And I walked upstairs and I sat in the chair, and I was like sitting there waiting for you, and it felt like an hour. And then it wasn't as bad as I had anticipated, but I don't think my nerves ever left. So I think the whole time I was just like, I don't know what I'm saying right now.
She's like, I don't want to be not truthful in my interview. So if he asks me if I'm a superstar, it's a no.
Well, and then you got hired.
I did.
And then my other favorite moment is in sales training type stuff. You and your person who referred you would most oftentimes look like you were going to explode, because you just go completely red everywhere when I would ask you a question. But look where you are now.
It's true. Yeah.
Right? And I think that
Come a long way.
even though you said, I'm not a superstar, you have really grown into that role and learned and became, before you left for your first, you were like one of our big producers. One of my favorite things was October, Halloween, and everyone's gone out of the office and you're still there. And I was like, hey,
Doing signings. Didn't
month
you have
end,
like
I'm
8
signing
signings
clients, yeah.
on a Halloween?
I think like I had a couple people that wanted to come in after they
Yeah, after
took
they
their
did their
kids
thing,
trick or treating. So
And
I
I'm
remember
like,
that.
it's Halloween. You're like, yeah, my clients are going to take their kids trick or treating. They have to sign tonight, and I'm going to stay here.
yeah,
I remember that.
Right? Those are like Taylor. We talk about it a lot of time. We call you TB, and we're like, TB would stay, guys. Like month end, TB, who you haven't met because she hasn't been here since January.
Yeah.
She's a legend. She would stay till like
God.
midnight signing deals to get your clients what they need. And that wasn't, maybe you would say I forced you to do it, maybe. But it was one of those things that you just always were really aware of your numbers, what you wanted to do, who you wanted to help, and what you needed to do to get that done.
for sure.
And so, I mean, you still have that aura about you, even though you may not feel it,
Yeah.
right? In our team, that you were somebody who would always get the job done.
It feels different now, obviously, because as you said, I'm rarely here, and then a lot of people I don't even know. So coming in is different than it was then. But I mean, ultimately, when I do get back to doing like the volume and stuff like that I was, and just working full time, I guess it'll come back. I think.
Here's my other. I think it will.
Yeah.
Better.
Well,
Yeah,
I feel like you
better,
haven't even
yeah.
necessarily lost it. I think it's just less time
It's just
dedicated
dedicated
toward it.
Yeah.
It's 100% accurate. My other favorite moment you will not expect, but we're at our 5-year anniversary in Niagara.
Okay.
You're having
I'm pretty
a good
sure
time.
I was sitting between.
I'm not sure where this one's going.
I know.
So.
You don't know.
Yeah, actually, I don't even know where the story's going. But
It's
I
a
was
good
sitting
one.
beside Taylor
It's a good one.
at the dinner.
Oh, at dinner, yeah.
So your then boyfriend,
Yeah.
Now husband.
now husband,
Yeah.
comes to me to thank me for
Oh,
him
yes.
coming. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I said, yeah, it's great. You're with Taylor. Taylor's really important to the team. And he looks at me, grabs my hand with these giant hands, and he goes, she's really important to me too. And I was like, well, this guy is going to marry this girl. I was like, yo, can
Really
I have
trying to
can I have my
impress you.
hand back, bro? Yeah. And I was like, oh, he really, he's telling me, yeah. So it was a pretty funny moment for me, because then you ended up getting married.
We did.
To him, and he is, it's always a good time.
Mm-hmm.
He's somebody that I really think is fun to be around, and we'll find out when we go
Celebrate
on
our
our
10
celebrate
year.
our 10-year.
Oh, yes, you will.
So you're one half of our only brother, sister, family team.
Okay.
And when you talk to me about your brother, who is also on the show, I asked why. Not why would you recommend your own brother for this punishment? Like, what is it about Nuborrow that you
This
were like,
punishment.
that you thought, wow, this might be a good fit for him? Because working here and knowing what the team environment is like, if you hated it,
Right.
it wouldn't be something that I assume, unless you don't like Robert.
Unless I hate my brother.
So what made you
So
recommend him, or think that it'd be what was it about Nuborrow or him that you thought would be a good fit to?
for sure. So both really. He's a little bit younger than I, and we're different people for sure, but I feel like we've gone through a lot of similar things in terms of just like how we went through life, different ways, but are just kind of the same in a lot of ways too. So he was in a bit of a similar position, not the same, but to I kind of when I started here. He was actually the same age as when I had started when I recommended him. And he will hate me for this, but he was modeling
Oh,
and
yeah.
he didn't know, I don't think, what he wanted to do long term. And I was in the exact same boat. As I said, I was waitressing, and honestly, when I came for the interview, I thought, what do I have to lose? Like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what this is about, but like, why not give it a try kind of thing?
Right. Because
at the time I was at a place in my life where I didn't own a home. I didn't have too much responsibility. Whether or not the restaurant that I was working at would have taken me back, I was confident that I could have got another job if it didn't work out. Like, I didn't have something that I needed to get up and leave. I didn't have a family that I needed to support and see, like, will this work or not?
Right.
So it was a really good time for me to kind of take that leap and see if it would, I guess, fit. And he was in the same place. He, had been modeling for years and was kind of at the place where he wasn't enjoying it as much anymore. And I thought, it's a good time for you to see if it fits you the way that it did me. Because again, when you get later on in life and you do have kids and you have those things, it's a lot more difficult to take something that is secure and risk, I guess, right? Not knowing what it is or how it's going to work out. And then the other thing is that I had been here for years, and the team here just treats people so much differently than like staff. Like, I've always said that I've never worked at any other brokerage. I never knew anything before here, but I've had other jobs before, and I don't think that there's truly anywhere else that you would be treated like family and rather than just like a staff member. And so I, from the day that I worked here, have felt so loyal to this team because I've always felt that. And I've just like, there's just things that you guys have done for me over the years that I honestly like, I don't think anyone else would ever do. And I'm just so appreciative of that. And I know how well people are treated and how much it changed my life, truthfully, like for every positive way. And so I wanted that for him too. And again, I didn't know for sure if it would be for him or if it would fit, but I thought he would be a good fit. And I thought that he was in a perfect place in his life to take that step and see if it worked. And I knew for a fact that he would be treated well. So I wanted to.
I think that's one of the things I love about that whole story the most, is that you would believe enough in Nuborrow just as a whole of everything that we do that you would recommend that he give that a try.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think you just said something about how this place or what we did, what you've done here has changed your life. And do you remember that? You told me a story that really made me laugh, or I've thought about it later and be like, yeah, that is pretty cool. When the neighbor asked your mom about what he thought was her car.
Yeah.
Remember that story?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I do.
The neighbor's like, hey, that's a really nice car. When did you get that car? And your mom said, it's my daughter's, right? And you have leveled up and built a life here.
For sure.
That you could never do anywhere else. No,
right? but realistically, that was not anywhere in my near future, at least, right? Like, because again, I had no idea what I was going to do or what I even wanted to do. I knew for a fact that what I went to school for was not going to happen. So, I mean, I don't know where I would have been if that didn't happen, but I know where I am now, and I'm very thankful for it.
We're thankful to have you.
Yes.
And your brother. Lesser of the two, but anyway. So on that note or that idea, then you have done a lot of deals. Mm-hmm. You've helped a lot of clients.
Yeah.
There has to be one or two people who have left a really deep impression with you that you'll remember those stories or those things that you've done for somebody or how it's worked out. Do you have any of those that come to mind?
Absolutely. I have a few, for sure, quite a few that really do stick, but there's one that I do always think about, I think, the most. And it was in my first, I don't know, maybe 2 years, I think, that I had helped this woman. And you start at the very beginning, you know that you're helping people, but you don't really know the magnitude of what you're doing and how it actually impacts like their entire life,
right.
Not just the things that you're talking to them about. So this was one of the first ones that I realized, like, just the ripple effect of what we did to help her and how it changed everything in her life. And she had reached out. She was in a relationship, not a great relationship, trying to kind of get out of it. Multiple children. They lived in a house that they ended up having issues with the home in the basement with some water leakage, turned into black mold all throughout the house. Didn't have funds to do anything about it, really couldn't sell the house because of the situation of it. So got to the point where she was actually taking her kids and sleeping in a tent with them because it was not safe for them to be in the home.
Do remember this.
Yeah. And so she was like, I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to have to sell, but what we're going to be able to sell for, like, I'm going to be left owing money because no one's going to buy a house that's like filled with black mold.
Yeah.
But I can't risk my kids' lives and safety and health. So she was sleeping with them in a tent. When we were speaking, we didn't speak a whole lot about the relationship, really just kind of about the situation. So I, again, didn't understand everything at first of kind of what was going on. She ended up we ended up getting her a loan. And part of the reason why this one also impacted me a lot was because of the situation. So she wasn't working. So financially, the state of the house, banks will not look at that, obviously. Right. So we ended up having to go to a more higher risk provider. And at that time I was like, oh my gosh, like this is pretty costly. Like it was one of those things where I was like, I don't know, but it was literally her only option. And so I walked her through everything. We created a plan. We got her enough money to pay off all the debt, give her some money to survive, get everything in the house remediated, and just have it so that they could have a home and be safe in their home. She wanted to be getting back to work. She was self-employed, so she needed a little bit of money to get things back up and going because she had been off for years with her kids. So we figured all of that out. And again, my hesitation at the time was like, man, this is expensive though. Like, how are we gonna figure it out? So we structured it in a way that it was paid for a certain amount of time and she had that time to get all of those things done. So they got the house completely remediated. She got back to work. Everything, debt got cleared up, credit went up. And then in a short time, we were able to get her back into a bank. And literally to this day, for years, she has told me numerous times how thankful she is that it changed her entire life. Like, just so much had come from that one thing that I looked at as like, this is kind of expensive. I don't know if this is, but in the grand scheme of things, it was the best thing that ever happened to her and her family. And she actually ended up separating, and she wrote a book about abusive relationships, and she mentioned us in her book because we were such a huge turning point in her life, literally. So a lot of things about that one that really just like, obviously the feelings that you have towards somebody that are going through such a hard time and the decisions that they have to make to keep their family safe, that's huge on you. But then also the way that I looked at it originally, being not here that long and not having done that much stuff like that, like, well, are we really helping her? Like, this is kind of expensive. But now knowing how stuff like that, like a stepping stone and a plan that really, works, can get her from point A to literally so far.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to even just listening. A lot of people will call us and say, I don't think you can help us. Or I don't 100%. Think you can help me. Mm-hmm. So even just giving them that hope, like, as much as we always say, like, we can help them so far and we put these plans in place, but we have to really work together. Right. And it would have taken that mom to kick it into second gear, continue to be a mom, and deal with a list of things that I couldn't even fathom.
Living in a tent.
Mm-hmm. In Canada.
With multiple children.
Kids.
Yeah.
But that's something that like moms would risk. And now being a mom, I'm sure it even hits home more, where it's like, could I, like, I'd have to do that for my kids. Like, what's the extent that a mom would do?
You have to, right? Like, cause again, you know that like over everything, that's the most important thing. And so, and you're right. Like, when originally she reached out, she didn't think that there was any option. She didn't think that there was anything she could talk. She had talked to multiple people who said, we can't help you, but she was not willing to give up. So she was trying everything. And that also made for obviously a great success story, because it's not like she, just needed something and then didn't do the stuff she needed to do and took the money and did something else. We really worked together, and she did her part and I did my part, and we got her from that place to you know, living happily with her children in a safe home, which a lot of people just take for granted, right? But like, it's one thing that goes wrong that you don't expect, and then all of a sudden your home is not safe for you to live in, and you don't have a solution.
Yeah.
So,
and I think too, like when it comes down to even working this position, you started really young. So a lot of those stories are impactful because of the magnitude of them. And you're like, how could this happen? But then like fast forward 5, 6, 7 years,
changes.
you're like, wow, like now I'm a mom, now I'm married, now I'm a homeowner. So I think these stories just kind of come full circle, and they become even more impactful years down the line.
For sure.
As opposed to just in the immediate moment. And I think that's why we constantly train our new staff of leading with empathy and saying, you know what, like maybe you haven't gone through this, maybe you aren't a homeowner, maybe you're not a parent, but if you were a parent, how would this make you feel?
Right. And that's the thing, right? Is like at that time in my life, I couldn't necessarily
fathom
resonate with her,
yeah.
but I could still feel for her and her situation. And so the years that have passed, and you know, she's reached out to me numerous times since then. And so now I look at it even more so as like, I mean, yeah, like it's just a huge change in somebody's life. And so it's rewarding to know that like your hard work is paying off.
Yeah.
That audit, which we do, something we do here before you meet a client, you sit down with me and I look at the deal and I ask you like, so I remember that audit as soon as you said tent, because that hit you then.
Yeah.
You know how much differently it would hit
Now.
you today if
Oh,
you
yeah.
were to do that deal?
Yeah.
You would
100%.
be, even if you just started, now you know that there's success and the plan works, and you can actually you can take somebody who has black mold, living in a tent, and the abusive relationship, we had nothing to, like, that's her courage. You're putting her in the right path to be able to take that next step, which you broke it down into got to fix the mold, got to get you out of the tent. It's just amazing that, and it still leaves an impression on you today, but it would have really impacted you so much differently today.
Yeah.
If it was at this point.
Right?
For sure.
But so that's another thing. My third, I have a lot of favorite things about you, but another thing is, and I say this to your brother as well, because this is how you were raised. Okay.
Yeah.
You both must 100% believe you are helping somebody, or you will not do the deal.
True.
I love that about both of you.
Yeah.
He didn't, that's trained from your parents. That's not, I didn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. As much as I preach that, one of the things when you and I have had tough audits is it's you come into me after a little while working together, you'd come into me, put something down, because you used to bring paper and be like, you have to tell me
How to make it make sense.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I do the audits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
like,
have to
"Make
tell
this
me,
make
Taylor.
sense."
Yeah.
And you're like, you need to make this make sense for me. I can't sign it.
Right, yeah.
I can't offer this to the client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I used to think, man, what a pain. And then, but in reality, I was like, wow, that's exactly what we're about, is that if it doesn't make sense, don't do it.
Right.
Borrowing money without a plan's a bad plan.
Right.
And now I have this strong woman in my office being like, yo, you make this make sense to me. How does this work? I've written a plan. Does it work? And we used to look at deals and break it down. And I remember the tent situation, thinking to myself, man, I don't know if I could do it, live in a tent and figure all that out. So I do remember that, but I do love that it has to work for you.
It does. Yeah.
Because you're standing in front of the client, and you won't. Lie's not the right terminology. You won't put somebody in a situation if it's worse.
Right. And in that being said, like the audits that I've done with you where I say I'm just hesitant or I'm not sure about something in this, it's like I'm getting caught on something and not seeing maybe the bigger picture, like in that position, right? Where I looked at it and was like, well, maybe this isn't the best rate or whatever. But at the time, you have to look at the bigger picture. So sometimes when I myself get caught up in those little details that really aren't the important details, that's when I need you to come in and say, okay, but this is what you're missing, right? It's from here to here, and that's where the plan falls into place. And so I get like clarity on why it makes sense, and then I'm like, okay, yes, that's right. So
you touched on it. I think that's the hardest part about this job. Is that, and then what we do, what we specialize in, when you're young and you don't have a lot, and I used to say it in training all the time, just because you don't have the life experience doesn't mean you can't have empathy, you can't help, you can't be understanding.
Yeah.
But it is easier said than done when I've had other agents who maybe aren't no longer on the team who would say to me, I can't even understand how you get in this situation.
Right.
Or I do have a lender. I'll use it, a lender's lawyer that we just simply took off our list. We would not use anymore because the feedback was so negative about the client we were trying to help. Why would they do this? Why would they be in this situation? And I asked that lawyer at that particular time, do you have kids?
Right.
No. I'm like, then you wouldn't possibly understand why you would try and keep them in the same school district, why you'd still want them to play on the same hockey team, why you don't want them to move off that street.
Yeah.
You're not willing to do anything, live in a tent,
Right.
do
it's
anything
easy.
possible.
Yeah, it's easy to look at someone's situation and just, judge the things that they've gotten into. But if you don't really like connect with them, and again, building rapport with your clients is the hugest thing, because if I talk to someone and they're not opening up as much and I can't understand why they got to where they are, then you can't help the same way to make sure that, they're not getting back into that position. Like, it really has to be like a team effort with both parties, making sure that, I'm understanding everything and they're being open with everything, so that the plan that we create is actually benefiting them. Because if someone says like, oh, this happened and I just fell into debt, that's one thing. But if they're constantly not being able to afford their bills and that's just going to keep happening, well, then, they're going to continue to get into the same position. And one of the things that I've noticed from being here, and again, I've never worked at another brokerage, so I know nothing different, but being here and doing as many deals as I have now, I've seen a lot of people come through that have done something previously with another brokerage.
Right.
And so they don't typically have, the plan. It's more of just like here's what you're getting, here's your rate, this is it. And people don't understand their credit more than we even realize, right? People don't understand how they actually need to fix their situation. They just basically take a Band-Aid. And so then they end up getting into a worse place than they were originally. And though I've never experienced that, because from the day I started, we've always had that process of having the plan and have everything in place, I've seen tons of people that have come through and voiced to me, wow, this is totally different than anything I've ever experienced before. Like, I'm blown away at how much this actually helped me, how much you taught me, not just like, here you go. So it really does make a huge difference to actually educate people on, what they need to do.
Right.
And some of the struggle is that that's not the easiest thing to open up about, right? Like, a lot of people, this is something that they're probably not proud of. They don't really want to go around like telling everyone. And so again, getting that connection and making sure that you're really truly understanding how and why they are where they are is the only way that you're going to be able to follow our process and create that plan to get them to where you want them to be.
Yeah. And
Amazing.
when we like hand select our team, let's say, referrals are the best kind of way to get our feet wet with meeting a new prospect, simply because character traits are a huge determining factor on who would excel at Nuborrow and who wouldn't. Because there's 14,000 of us mortgage agents. Not everyone leads with the same amount of care, the same amount of empathy, and we're all qualified the same, but it's that extra mile. So going back to what Adam touched on earlier was, we know how you were raised. We know how your brother was raised. That plays into a level of the success that you guys can attain and meet, because you can take a step back with or without the experience or understanding and lead with that. And a successful mortgage agent here at Nuborrow is someone that can understand, listen, and help, and be invested in helping whomever get to that goal, whatever the magnitude of it. Like your story speaks exactly to that. On some people's mountains are a lot littler than others. She had a mountain to climb, and only she could really do it. You gave her the tools to do it. And that plays into a huge part of what we do here and why it's so important to have the right people on our team.
100%.
Yeah.
And you made it. You made it to the end of the
it.
podcasts.
Yes.
Oh, yay.
And you ended it with, I don't think I could have written it better about what we are about, the plan, how much you have to buy in as somebody who's helping someone. You can't teach somebody if you don't believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And we say that to agents all the time. You got to believe in what we're doing or it doesn't make sense. There's 30,000, 40,000 client records that works.
Yeah.
It's a proven step.
Yeah.
And you mentioned people don't know a lot about credit, and I'm going to end it with, we had a bank in here I won't name that demonstrated yesterday that they don't understand how the credit bureau works just based on the advice they gave.
Right.
Because the advice they gave would immediately put the person in credit jail.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't qualify in the future. So it's a lot of stuff that we do.
Right.
I really appreciate you.
I appreciate
You've been here
you.
through a lot. You've always demonstrated that you believe in me, and that means a lot to me. And I appreciate you a great deal. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you
joining
very
us,
much.
Taylor.
Thank you.
Bye. There you go. You're done.
Are we done?
You're out.
Okay.
You did excellent.
Done.
And you talked way more than you thought you would.
Did I?
Times I couldn't stop you talking.
Really?
Yeah. I don't really think I said
I
much.
I don't talk to anybody these days.
Yeah, well, you couldn't wait to get out.
Got a little baby.